My name's Stephanie. I'm a compulsive eater. I weigh and measure 3 meals a day from the gray sheet. I write those meals down, commit them to my sponsor before I eat them. I don't eat in between, no matter what. Abstinence is the most important thing I do every day. My abstinence date is April 12th, 2001, and for that, I'm truly grateful. And thank you so much for asking me to speak. I've been thinking a lot about gratitude because my MO when I wake up is really negative. So I'm really trying to practice contrary action and cultivate gratitude. And I remember old gray sheet tape from New York, and that was the topic. And I just thought that was so interesting because I always need to cultivate gratitude. And it's difficult because I'm thinking that a good survival skill is to always worry about the worst thing that could possibly happen and just give myself anxiety for no good reason constantly. And if I could just let that go and trust in the process and trust in a higher power, my needs are always met. And so I'm really trying to practice that. And someone mentioned awesome sauce. I think that's abstinent. That's great. I used to say that a lot myself. But my parents were teenagers when they had me. I really thought I was that love child, like the Supremes. They told me they didn't tell me she was pregnant early, but I figured that out. They got married because my mom got pregnant, and this was in Alabama. So they sent her to some horrible, home for unwed mothers that were in high school. And basically it was really traumatic for her, and her dad disowned her for a while. And anyway, so she married my dad, and they moved away and had me, and they both worked outside the home. So I was a latchkey kid. And that time when you come home and you're alone and you just try to eat, whatever you can. And it became obvious pretty quickly who was eating the food because I couldn't blame it on anybody else. Um, Although my dad was a compulsive eater too, so we'd kind of sneak off by ourselves. And anytime we visited his side of the family, there was a lot more food to eat, and it was the highlight of my visit or whatever. So it became apparent pretty quickly. And by third grade, someone said, "You have fat thighs," and I finally realized that the way I was eating affected the size of my body. And I'm really short, so my mom would have to get clothes in the section for people like 5 or 10 years, like teenagers, and then junior miss or whatever. And the clothes were way too long, and she didn't sew, so I just had to roll up the pants or roll up the skirt at the waistband or something. It was really embarrassing just trying to adjust to that. And most of the time, I looked like a boy, and they just cut my hair short, and it was real low maintenance. And so, like, I'd be in a store, and someone would think I was a boy, when they talked to me or something. And I guess I was pretty much a tomboy anyway. I didn't really know the difference. And since they worked outside the home, I ended up, trying to find kids to go home from school with, like on the bus, if they had a better pantry at home after school, making friends based on what they had, and, using people for my self-centered needs. Basically, it was, however I could get it. And it got worse from there. I saw an after-school special on bulimia in junior high, and by ninth grade, I was binging and purging pretty regularly, and it was pretty brutal. I would, I'd pass out at the mall or something, just get real dehydrated from doing that. And just the degradation and basically living like an animal. But I really thought, I didn't realize I was powerless over food. I just thought I was powerless over the weight. And that if I could circumvent that, I had, didn't have any problems anymore. And I thought that this was a great way to overcome that and not have to worry about it. But it got to where, I'm sneaking out in the middle of the night trying to find more food because there's not enough at home. And I ended up my mom had like a coin collection in this hutch, and I just was taking them and spending them at face value on junk food. And my parents got divorced when I was 14, and my dad ran off and married this woman and moved out of state like 30 days after the divorce was final. And this woman had 3 children by 3 different men. And not that that matters, but she was pretty wild. And he moved out of state, so I was really devastated and felt abandoned, and thought, now he's going to raise these other three kids and not me. And I had wanted him to take me for custody, but I guess I didn't know if he didn't fight for it or what, but I never got along with my mom. So I didn't see him for like 7 or 8 years after that. And so it was pretty downhill from there. I ended up in a psych ward for the bulimia, and they didn't know what to do with that. They had no clue. Um, in fact, it was real punishing because the other kids, they said nobody here at lunch can trade food anymore because of this one person, and so it was really, because of me being there, it was ridiculous that this would affect what other people are eating or whatever. And uh, things like I was supposed to be raising money for school for some fundraiser, and I ate the whole box and had to find $50 to give them for that. And I ended up dropping out of high school and just living with people that, their main problem was drugs. And I used drugs with them, but it was basically, if I'm smoking pot, then I can have the munchies and not be embarrassed. Or if I'm caught in the bathroom, oh, I'm just real drunk or something, just an excuse for that. But there was always the bag of groceries to go with it, and a lot of diet pills too. So, but I managed to get clean in September of 1988, and was going to Narcotics Anonymous meetings, and was at a noon meeting. I think I had about a year clean, and would go to noon meetings in between classes. And this woman had this big Tupperware, and she was eating 3 colorful vegetables in this big Tupperware container. And, I was always on the hunt for the latest diet fad, whatever I could do, because, the more the older I got, the harder it was to continue to abuse my body like that. And anytime I stopped purging, I would immediately gain 50 pounds within a couple months. And so, I was really trying to find a way to deal with that. And so I wanted to know what she was doing. And she said, I'll tell you after the meeting. And she told me about Gray Sheet, and she took me to my first meeting. And it took 12 years after that. I wasn't trying all the time. It might have been like once a year, once every couple of years, for me to think, oh, I could, see if I could do that for a little while. But it wasn't very long. The most I ever got was 62 days before I got abstinent this time. And I think it's because I was really disco dieting. I just wanted to, drop the weight as soon as I can. And I was in my 20s, so it would fall off pretty rapidly. And then I was, had other stuff to do with my life. And I was always, fitting my abstinence around my life instead of my life around my abstinence. And the abstinence is the foundation now. And if I don't have that, I don't have anything. I don't have hobbies. I don't have a spiritual consciousness. I don't have conscientiousness towards others. I'm very miserable, like verbally abusive to customer service people. I really wanted the waitress to fix me. So whatever she was bringing, I wanted it to be right. And, I finally was brought to my knees. I had, my doctor said, you're going to have to take insulin. You're type 2 diabetic now. And I was, I think, size 22 pants. I couldn't wear, I was always outgrowing my clothing. So I was making clothes with elastic waistbands and trying to hide it. And, was probably about 180 pounds when I stopped weighing, maybe a little bit more. And so I was doing a 6-step with my NA sponsor. And normally I wouldn't mention other programs, but I just think this is relevant to the story. So I'll mention that one more time. I was doing a 6-step, and I kept talking about gluttony. And she said, and she's not a compulsive eater. She's tried Weight Watchers a few times, but, she can just, take it or leave it most of the time. And she said, you keep talking about this like it's your 6-step, but I really think this is a first step issue. And I think you need to go back to that program where they have a specific program of action for this, because I can't help you with this. And she knew, that was working for other people in the program. And I had also run into somebody at my office. I worked in a large office that had a cafeteria in the building. and someone that I had done Gray Sheet with in the 90s was a state employee as well. And she walked in, thank you, Taisha. And I saw her and I was like, I just saw this neon sign above her that said, Gray Sheet, hello, remember? And so I went back to meetings, and my husband and I tried to get abstinent a few times, but I was extremely cranky, and that was my biggest fear, was that when I get abstinence, I just become a bitch. And I would blame, PMS or the traffic or homework or, like a final test, anything, any reason for me to not be able to do this program, or a virus or something, any muscle cramps, whatever. And that's another thing. It's like, it's so strange how people have a solution for medical problems is always, just eat this X and that'll take care of it. And it's like, food is not always the answer to my problems today. And it is the answer, the right foods are the answer to this disease. But old wives' tales and things that other people do could send me right back into the triple X sugar, and I can't afford to play with that. So, I had at one point given up abstinence based on what a nutritionist told me, what my therapist told me, what somebody else, a friend at school or whatever told me. And it's really important now to protect my abstinence and to not feel sorry for myself doing this. It's not that I have to do this, because the moment I start talking to people like, yeah, I can't eat that anymore, it gives them a good reason to try to talk me into not eating, not staying abstinent. And so I really try not to play the victim with that this is a life-saving medicine for me. I don't have to take insulin. I don't have to take anything for irritable bowel syndrome. I don't have blisters in my mouth anymore, or burning esophagus, or problems from taking laxatives. I don't have to lie about what I'm eating or sneak around and hide food. And I don't have to steal food from people's cubicles at the office. And today, people have said, you have integrity. And it's like, if they only knew, it's the desperation and willingness to do this program that gives me dignity and self-respect. And it's amazing how that spreads to other areas of my life. But it starts with putting down the food and learning to set boundaries, whether it's at a restaurant asking for what I need, probably more salad, or telling, that first time right after I got abstinent was Easter, and a new coworker at work, I could see her getting up and I just knew it was coming. She had this dish. She had brought this homemade dish to work, and, oh, you've just, why don't you try this? And I just had to say, I'm really sorry. No, thank you. And so it doesn't matter today why, whether it's, oh, I already ate, or, I'm not feeling well today, whatever I have to say, to get out of it. Now I'm able to just say that no is a complete sentence and no, thank you. But even in the beginning, it was clunky boundaries, whether it was, oh God, no, I can't, or throw it in the trash. Some people, they'd try to put something in your hand. It's crazy. So, I just make sure today it helps for me. I don't volunteer to buy food for fundraisers at work with kids' school. I'm like, do you have a calendar or something else that you sell? Or I don't volunteer to take birthday stuff to other meetings or family events or whatever it is, so that I don't have to transport that in the car or anything. I just don't entertain that, because it's food pornography, really. And it might be, I might have a good buffer zone for a while after some long-term abstinence, but I just don't want to play with that. So, some reservations were like, man, I can never have X again. That seems so innocuous. And then I think, can you imagine if I relapsed over not being able to have that one starchy vegetable? I'm going to kill myself over that. That is ridiculous. That would be a tragedy, to end up out there and relapse because I insist on having one thing. And it was that sense of entitlement and the freedom that comes from the time we spend in between meals, actual intimacy with people, listening to their conversations and not thinking what's on their plate or when can I get the hell out of here to go do what I really want to do, eating it, So, being present today and in the moment and trying to find the sacred in the mundane. Like for years, I really resented having to do laundry and dishes. And now I just try to have it as a meditative practice, and that there is enough time in the day to have other activities, especially staying abstinent. Now I have time for hobbies, have time for step work. Thank you, Taisia. Time to meet with people. And that's one of the things I'm most selfish with. So I'm really working today on giving more time. And I'm just so grateful to be with y'all. I'm grateful to be abstinent. And this is a life worth living, and it's second to none for me. I appreciate it. Thanks.